Welcome to another video where I go through old articles related to the Bay City Rollers. And this time we have an article by Rosalind Russell in Disc magazine from 16th of March 1974. And it is called Split. Nobby and the Bay City Boys roll their separate ways. Sorry for that. Nobby and the Bay City Boys roll their separate ways. With the second headline, I guess, being, or byline, I don't know any of this lingo from journalism. Rosalind Russell delves for the truth behind the departure of Nobby Clark from the Bay City Rollers. Okay. So this is one of the earliest articles I could find. Hopefully I will find... There is some stuff a little bit before this, I think, that I have, but this is one of the earlier ones. And it comes at a fascinating time. Okay, here we go. As always, I cannot read the, as far as I know, I cannot read the entire articles, although I doubt anyone would care, but, you know. Let's take a look at this. Nobby Clark is the man who left the Bay City Rollers at precisely the wrong moment, it would appear. And it would appear is the key there, right? He recorded Remember with them, and before its release, decided to quit. And his story differs quite remarkably from that of the Rollers. Now, I don't know if his story is that dramatically different from theirs in this article. It all seems pretty tame to me. And this thing about it would appear, like, maybe it was the best time to get out of there, right? Knowing what was going to be coming down the line for these guys. If they thought they were working hard in 1973, imagine what 1975 is going to be like in 1976. There's a little bit of stuff in here about how you never really get to the bottom of why bands break up. There's cliches about musical differences and stuff like that. But it says, however it happened, Nobby is on his own. The success of the Rollers is assured, which is very interesting. They are the ones sitting on a hit single and have another Bonnie-looking lad to take over as lead singer. Nobby is the one who's going to have to fight hard to get to a similar position, and he's doing it practically on his own. And I think we can take from that obviously there's no management there for him that was there for the Rollers. The split was friendly, say the Rollers. It was a bad situation, said Nobby. We didn't get on too well. I wouldn't like to go into it all, and I have it written down. There were musical differences as well as other things. I wasn't happy with the management. There was a list of things. So you can take from that what you want. Yeah, like one thing I think you have to consider about precisely the time where Nobby left is that we're talking about a band who have Martin and Coulter writing songs for them, but Martin and Coulter are getting both the A and the B sides. And there's no knowledge about the fact at this point in time that an album is on the horizon, right? Like there may be at this time, but when Nobby makes his decision to leave, that was not on the horizon as far as I would know. And the thing about that is that is the first time with that album that the Bay City Rollers, as songwriters, managed to get several songs of their own pressed, and some of them are very, very good songs. So there's a huge difference between after Rollin' comes out and the period beforehand. And then, of course, Martin and Coulter are fired, right? Between the first and second albums. So that's something I think to take into consideration. Like, if you want to be taken seriously, it would be very challenging to have all of your songs written by someone outside of the band. Anyway, there's something here is generally saying, well, somebody is lying. Well, I don't know. It mentions how Nobby was 23 years old at the time. Mentions him as a founder member of the band. That one's always like, I never read enough to get to the bottom of all of that. Nobby's attitude towards the business and his music is somewhat serious in comparison to the Rollers. They are intent on enjoying themselves and still seem very young in their approach to their career. So that's kind of interesting. But somewhere beneath all this fresh-faced innocence, someone is keeping something quiet. I got the impression with the Rollers that they said pretty much what they were primed to say, and that it's unlikely they'll ever offend anyone by any controversial statement. Nobby is a little scared that his future might be affected by his split from the band, or at least the seedy side of it coming out. That's conjecture. There's no quote on Nobby at that point in time about any of that, right? So there's a mention here that Nobby's plans are to get on with music without the Rollers. And there's a potential move to London for him. I have a lot of people in mind that I'd like to come with me. I don't know if I'll be successful. It's difficult to say. I do know that if I do get it, I'll have done it on my own with little help from anyone. I know that music is all I'll ever do, even if it's producing or something like that. Did he feel that perhaps the music in the Rollers wasn't taken seriously enough? And this is a quote. Oh, it was taken seriously, but it just wasn't done properly. It's better for me to be out of it. They've got a hit record, but that's all they've got as far as I'm concerned. I'm getting into being myself. As a solo singer, I hope to have a record out soon. We're organizing an arranger and a producer, and I'll have to put a backing group together. It'll be me and a band rather than me being one of 5. I'll be keeping pretty much to the same image, as it's the one the public know me by. If they know me at all, I'll just continue appearance-wise as I've been doing. But isn't that interesting? I found this very interesting. The concept of being a singer with a backing band rather than actually being part of a band. And it's very interesting to me because I've mentioned many times the way Les was treated on the first album as if he was special and he was the star. Producers like vocalists. They can't replace vocalists, right? And so this concept constantly breaks out that the vocalist should be a soloist with a backing band. And we heard complaints later on that that's how Les felt about the Bay City Rollers, is that he is the star and there is this band that backs him. Who knows how persistent that kind of thing was, or how accurate that is. But it's just something that statement kind of reminded me of. It talks here about how glam rock exponents, the young bands are coming, and mentions the Bay City Rollers, and you better watch your backs. The Rollers look not unlike the skinheads of 5 years ago with their short hair and rolled up trouser legs. And it's funny now that we look back and someone would say that they have short hair. But we have to remember the big bands back then, like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, like the hair was absolutely huge. I don't know enough about Rory to know if he was big on the scene at that point in time. But think about the hair he had, right? The Rollers' hair, actually, they certainly did not shave their heads, right? But they had little cropped hair on top, right? And then it came down the sides. Not too much unlike Rod Stewart, in my opinion. So let's read this again. The Rollers look not unlike the skinheads of 5 years ago with their short hair and rolled up trouser legs. They are, however, a mellower band of people and altogether much less aggressive. Well, that's good to know, right? In fact, they look like nearly every other kid who lives next door. An updated Cliff Richard syndrome. Okay? So I just find that one interesting because there's some historic context to that, right? Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, so Nobby's gone. In his place is a small, insistent person called Leslie. Please, will you spell my name right? Is in quotes there. McCone. He has all the requisite features in the right place, and like the others, is a dead ringer for getting all the girls at it. His voice has been on the TV tapes the band have done, although it's Nobby singing on the new single Remember. Now, we do know that changed and that a whole new set of singles was released. How many of each? We don't know. The music business, right? Nobby left before the single was released, said guitarist and spokesman-in-chief Eric Falconer. And I must point out that Eric's name is spelt without his stage name. It's actually Eric Falconer. But we're still friends. He just didn't like being on the road all the time. Apart from his voice, Leslie is an excellent choice. His age and appearance fits in with the dovetail precision to the exact image of the band. He could have been tailored for the job. When he loses some of his shyness, he will be ideal. There's a mention here that Derek and Alan don't speak too much. That Eric has become quite verbose in comparison to previous meetings. So he's, I get that feeling that more and more Eric is emerging as the band leader, right, at this point in time. And we know from Les's book that it was Eric that took a stand against some of the producers and against the record labels earlier on, right? There's some mention here of some of their earlier singles and how, while they had some success, it wasn't a runaway train, so to speak. Here's Les. They asked me one week to join, then rang me the following Saturday to say I was to play that night. I had to learn the songs in the car on the way to the gig, and I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that's untrue. And I think we have a few different places where it's mentioned that the lyrics to the songs were written and taped up on the stage so that he could go over and read them while he was singing, right? Okay, which is fascinating and explains... if you can get through that and you have a good voice, you're going to be a success, right? I think that's the case for sure. Now, I don't know who's being quoted here. It's not very specific, but I want to read some of this. We've been very lucky. There are a lot of people who have helped us, but there is no other way to advance except by working hard. Older groups move over when the younger ones come up, and I suppose we will eventually do the same. We haven't got this far through money either. We've had to fight, scratch, and scrape to get here. There's no point in having it handed to you on a plate. It's better to work for it. We have got improved conditions. Now we don't have to sleep in the van or 7-to-1 room when we're on the road. We think there is a need for fresh faces on the scene. It may be that the kids are screaming for the older singers because there isn't anything else. We hope we can fill that gap. Of course, it would be better if there was television exposure for young bands. I don't mean Huey Green's program either. There is only Top of the Pops just now and Liftoff. That's being moved to Saturday early evening so more people will be able to see it. Although we are quite young, you have to remember that we have been playing for some time. Keep on Dancing was almost 2 years ago. We just started out young. Actually, we were really pleased the other night. We got an incredible reception at a concert, and the promoter came up and said, "Look at that," and they're just kids. He thought we were kids, but he said we'd done well. That coming from the promoter. And then it's mentioned, one of the nicest things about this band is their enthusiasm for everything. They make traveling seem more like a boys' club coach party than serious slog on the road. There's no tired cynicism here, just a touch of madness and amazing energy. To them, it's still fun and not just an industry for making money. So, mentions that they may have their own opinions about stagnation in music, but they're not really willing to put that down in the interview. But I really would like to, and I'm going to read over this part with this huge quote. It could be Eric, because Eric, it's either Tam or Eric, but it doesn't make sense for Tam because he was older, so it makes more sense that it would have been Eric speaking, because the writer mentions that Eric is more verbose than the other band members. But fascinating stuff anyway, and I think it's an interesting little clip of history at a time just before the Bay City Rollers become one of the biggest bands on the face of the planet, and roller mania takes over huge chunks of the world, including the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Ireland, parts of Europe, Germany in particular, and Japan. Ridiculous. It's crazy what happened, isn't it? It's almost hard to believe. And hopefully, there people listen to so much older music now. Like, a lot of youth don't even bother with the top 100. I was looking at the top 100 with my son the other day because he was like, "You got to see this, Dad." Like, could you imagine anyone my age actually listening to this? And we just went through 10 songs, and I was like, I feel sorry for you. Like, I still had good music and real music from real bands that worked hard, not just people that were put together by producers, right? When I was young. Anyway, the Rollers are not getting, still do not get their due. Because they released a lot of great songs, and also too often their cover songs are the ones that people mention when they are great, but they did much of their best stuff they wrote themselves. Anyway, I hope people found that interesting. Next, we have why Pat was fired from the band from another article, which I'm still working on the translation of. Have a good night.